Good morning, listeners. You're welcome to this week's Ag Report. I'm Jim Finn. My guests this week are Pat Hogan from Community Alert in Mycarkey, talking about marking your property. We also have the opening of the refurbished Teagasc office in Clonmel. And my final guest this morning will be Adam Woods, who is the editor of the Irish Farmers Journal. My first guest this morning is Roisin McManus, and Roisin is with me this morning to talk about three or four different topics that are topical at the moment. Roisin, good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks be to God. Yes, all's good. Now,
Good,
Roisin,
good.
Teagasc research has shown that we don't have enough of slurry storage and we don't have enough of soil water storage. So, what's the situation with that with regard to Teagasc?
Dr. Pat Toohey, he's a researcher based down in Teagasc and Moore Park. So between 2023 and 2025, he carried out a study, and it basically was to assess the current volume of dairy, soil water and slurry produced on dairy farms. And he did it across the country, like to
Yeah.
represent nationally. Um, and basically the key findings of that study showed that slurry production is 21% higher than current regulations. So at the minute, a dairy cow produces 0.33 cubic meters per cow per week. Um, and the research suggests that that's actually meant to be zero point 0.4 cubic meters per cow per week. So look, it's a 21% increase there. I suppose when you look at that 0.33 cubic meters per cow per week, like that figure has been there since 2006. So yeah, look, that figure is going to be changing from the 1st of October 2028. And then I suppose in relation to the soil water production, at the minute, that's zero point 0.2 cubic meters per cow per week, which is roughly 30 litres per cow per day. And that's just for like your parlour washings and the pit. That doesn't include if you've a collecting yard that's unroofed, you have to consider the square metres of that collecting yard and the rainfall. But just talking about like your dairy washings, that figure is currently 0.21. But based off Pat's research, that production, the research he did, it's actually coming in 43% higher. So that figure is going to increase to zero point 0.3 cubic meters per cow per week from again the 1st of October 2028.
Okay, and 2028 isn't that far away. What effect then does this research have if I had a herd of 100 cows?
Yeah, I suppose for Tipperary, the storage period, as you're all aware of, is it's
Mm-hmm.
because we're in zone A, it's 16 weeks. So if you have the current figure of 0.33 cubic meters per cow per week at 16 weeks by 100 cows, that's 528 cubic meters, which is just over 116,000 gallons, right? But when you then look at the point 0.4, which is going to be in place from the 1st of October 28, zero point 0.4 by your 16 weeks by 100 cows, that jumps to 640 cubic meters, which is well over 140, just shy of 150,000 gallons, really. So, it is a big jump. And I suppose it's important to note that, the figure for it, this is just going to be changing for the dairy cow. But it's still, like you said, it seems like, oh, it's 2028, but like, if you're going to be going for TAMS, like you need planning permission, and then you can't start anything until you have approval of both planning permission and then again TAMS. So I suppose the reason I want to talk about it today is so that guys can, be familiar with these changes, get in contact with their either Teagasc advisor or private planner and get them out to assess the current situation and assess what they have on farm and see maybe can they minimise the amount of rainwater getting in by, for example, roofing tanks that are unroofed, and trying to work at what they have first and then look at what's needed then on farm.
Yeah, and what advice would you give a farmer now?
I suppose, yeah, again, just to assess the current situation,
Mm-hmm.
because just from experience with doing farmyard assessments, like, the farmer's there every day and they're seeing their yard, but there's actually a lot of maybe clean yard that could be that's actually could be added to storage, that could be diverted away. Even simple things like chutes and downpipes that are leaking and could be added to storage. A leaking drinker in the shed. You could look at maybe roof and collecting yards, roof and open slurry stores. Yes, so the advice would be to act now, because we're at the start of May 2026, and you think you can kick the can down the road, but look, if you want to go for financial support, yourself, that all takes time, like planning permission and TAMS and that. So yeah, just to contact your local advisor and start get the ball rolling really. Because look, as I said, like it's going to be enforced from the 1st of October 28. So,
Okay, that's that topic. The other topic you wanted to mention briefly was giant hogweed. And that's in parts of West Tipperary in particular. And if a farmer has it on their land, Roisin, what should they do?
Yeah, so anyone, I suppose, listening that's in the West Tipperary area is probably aware that this is an ongoing problem, this giant hogweed. And there was meetings done, I think, pre-COVID, and I'd say it was about 2 years ago now. LawPro, the local authority waters program, they're based down in Tiptown, and they would have had meetings, I suppose, to bring farmers in, we'll say, that area. So like the affected area really is the Toom, Kappa White and Cartanahalia tributaries, which is of the upper Mulcair Dead River catchment. And I'm people would have attended that, and it's a local concern really, because it's not just impacting water quality. It also, as you know yourself, Jim, when you come in contact, especially for kids, like it's a particular risk. It can cause skin burns and other health issues. So if your skin is comes in contact with giant hogweed, it can cause severe burns. So I suppose people in that area, they want to get rid of it really. So but the biggest problem I suppose they had was funding really to get rid of the hogweed. So the Farming for Water EIP, so it's a European Innovation Partnership. So that's a 50 million fund really from the EU to help improve water quality on farms. And from that 50 million, they secured funding to go towards this West Tipperary giant hogweed project. So what I'd be saying to anyone in this area that has giant hogweed on their farm, or say a neighbouring farm or on the side of the road, to get in contact. You don't have to be a Teagasc client, but get in contact with one of the Teagasc offices in Tipperary, and I can call out to your farm and look, identify where the hogweed is, mark it in on the map, and I can put in, that this area needs to be sprayed. And LawPro down in Tiptown, they're going to be getting in contact with a contractor that will come out, that are registered, that can safely come out and spray this hogweed, because it's going to be, we'll say, a project over 2 years, and it's not going to go overnight. But I suppose what we're trying to get the message out now, that this program is it's up and running. We have funding now, and we just want to get rid of it really, like, because it's the impact on water quality then is that because it's not a native species, it can cause the river banks to become unstable and cause like bank erosion and that, which is not ideal if you have a stream or a water course on your farm, and it can cause a loss of nutrients and sediment to streams and rivers as well. So it's having both an impact on water quality and on human health. So it's a priority now within that catchment.
Yeah, I suppose we should warn parents particularly to keep their children away from the riverbanks or wherever this giant hogweed is found, because they do run the risk that it will probably make the child very uncomfortable if it burns it. So, and indeed, we should say the same applies to the general public. Summer is here. Children love water and they love getting into water during their holidays. So again, we should be telling them to be very careful if they're anywhere near a stream that has giant hogweed on it.
Yeah, even just to go Googling what it looks like when it starts to flower, especially
Yeah.
like it hasn't started to flower yet.
Mm.
But even just like I have a flyer here in the office and we're hoping, look, it's, as you know, like, you know, it takes time to get these projects up and running, but there's a flyer now available and we're hoping that that's going to be put into like you know, local shops and that in the area. So just, yeah, like you said, just to make people aware, especially young kids.
Okay, well, look at Roisin. Thanks very much for joining us this morning and sharing all that information with the listeners. And let's hope nobody gets damaged with the hogweed and that farmers will start thinking about extra storage because things are changing in 2028.
Lovely. Thanks, Jim.
That, listeners, was Roisin McManus from Teagasc, and Roisin is in the Nina office. Listeners, on this day week, a very important event is taking place out in Littleton, and it's in the new community centre. If you know the one that you go through the village, past the church, leave the church on your right hand side, and then the building is on your left hand side. There is a property branding event taking place, and it's been run by the local Muinta na Tíre group. And with me to tell me all about it, I have Pat Hogan. And it's a while since Pat spoke to AgReport on Tip FM, but he did in the past. Pat, a great initiative, and one that's for more than farmers, I believe.
Yes, Jim, it's for everybody really, because everybody has property, you know, and it's marking property to prevent theft of property. And look, we'll be marking all sorts of items, from small items like mobile phones, laptops, iPads, and up to a large machine like an Ivor Williams trailer, or even we could do a tractor if anyone wanted it done, you know.
Right. Now, it's a long time ago since I was out here in your place, and there was another event like this years and years ago. And the ways in which they mark things now has changed considerably since then. I remember it used to be a stencil, and we put it on the trailer, and we put it on the Ivor Williams cattle box, or whatever the case may be. You tell me now that things have changed.
That's right, Jim. Yeah, I remember that day. It's a long time ago. You tell me it's nearly 20 years ago. It probably is, I'd say, where they marked the trail a very big 9 or 10 inches tall lettering, and a big launch here one day on our farm. The president of the IFA was here, and the deputy commissioner of the Gardaí, and it was a big thing. But it kind of fell through, and I was just looking at that Ivor Williams trailer up the yard yesterday. There's still a remnant of the number on it. It hasn't come off completely, but it has faded a bit. But anyhow,
your IFA number that we're putting on at the time.
It wasn't actually. It was TN was on it, and that was for North Tip, and there was a code for. We were 001 actually. Our trailer was the first one, was marked in North Tipperary anyhow. But anyhow, it moved forward a lot since then, and it's a laser printing we're putting on now. And what's recommended is people put on their driving licence number. Now, a few years back they were using the air code, but unfortunately, people, if you have something stolen out of your van or your car or your Jeep, and your air code is on it, the thief can actually trace where you're living and come back for more. But it's far more secure to put on your driving licence number. It's unique to yourself, and the Gardaí can actually find who owns it fairly quickly, because there is a database of driving licence numbers, and the Gardaí can locate you fairly quickly if they recover your property. And remember that the Gardaí do recover a fair amount of property. People think they don't, but if they find a piece of property and there's no identification on it, you can prove that you own it, they can't give it back to you. But if you have a special number unique to yourself, you can actually claim the recovered property, and that's a big thing.
Yeah. I was at one of these recovered Garda property in Nina some years ago, and there was quite a lot of property there.
Oh, a lot. There was actually one in the same hall that we're having this event in next Saturday during the summer, and there was the whole perimeter of the hall was full of recovered property, but unfortunately people weren't able to prove that was there, so you couldn't claim it, So there, I suppose anything that has a serial number on, people should have recorded the serial number, but there's not serial numbers on every item of property. So we're emphasising particularly those type of items that haven't got a serial number. But any item, whether it has a serial number or not, it's good to put your driving licence number on it so that it can be recovered. And as I say, the Gardaí do recover a fair amount of property.
Yeah. Okay. So this is on this day week from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah, that's right. So there's good time span, so people can come early, or they have until 2 p.m. in the afternoon to come, and it's Saturday. Usually people have people at home from college and school and that, so they have probably more time to bring along their piece of property. So you can bring along any kind of property you have, and we'll get it marked there. It's a laser printing system, and it's a good, secure way of identifying, marking your property.
And listeners, I can tell you it's a great way of marking your property, because Pat brought me out to show me some of his property that he has marked, as he said, with his driver's license number on very small pieces of equipment, which is absolutely fantastic, even down to your mobile phone, which one would have in their pocket. So it is one way of making certain sure that if your phone is stolen, that you have an opportunity that nobody can pass it on to somebody else or sell it because your particular markings are on it. So, Pat, it's Mointon na Tíre and Community Alert then out here in Mycarkey that's doing this.
It is, yeah. I think I might mention, Jim, is that if you have a large item like a quad bike or a ride-on lawnmower, that the thieves very often sell them in parts. So we recommend that you put the number on in a number of different places on the machine so that it is dismantled, that you can identify the parts. And I suppose the other thing we might mention is, yes, Community Alert. Community Alert has gone in our parish for 15 or 16 years. We did a lot of work on with providing people with dependent alarms. I think we had up to 100 of them in the parish at one stage, and there are still a lot of people with them. And that has been upgraded as well. You now can have the new Corda app, which is the app of Mointon na Tíre, and you can have that on your phone. And you actually can have the red button on your phone, and you can contact anybody, a person, any place in the world. Now, if you get a fall in horse and jockey and the person you're contacting in Australia, it isn't much good to you. But at the same time, usually people nominate a relative or a neighbour that can be contacted fairly quickly if you get a fall or you need attention or you get some sort of an attack of any kind. So that's a very good thing to have. You'll get someone to come to you fairly quickly. The other thing I might mention is that we would like to have more volunteers. The situation with volunteerism in rural Ireland, it's difficult for people to take on leadership roles, but we'd welcome more volunteers for our local Community Alert group, and they're always welcome at our meetings. The meetings are usually we put them on the parish newsletter, maybe the local press, so we don't have too many in the year. But look, we have great reports from our local county councillor, Sean Ryan, reports from the local Gardaí. There's always crime, there's always thefts, and we try to improve the morale of people in the parish. And this is one of the initiatives that we are undertaking to try and combat theft and robbery in our community.
Right. you mentioned that you're looking for volunteers, and okay, maybe some of the people here in the parish that are listening to us this morning, Pat, what can they do? If they don't see the meeting, can they contact somebody like yourself and say, look, they'd like to volunteer?
Oh, they can, yeah. Our current chairperson is Patricia Lucknan. I think you know Patricia, involved in a lot of things in the locality. And look, I was chairperson of I'd say it's back 15 or 16 years ago. I'm still a bit involved. I'm not an officer, but I help out any time I can. And we have Gerard O'Hara, whom as well, and Meryl Cantwell, our officers. And Lee Moore is another person who was doing a lot of work here locally. I spent yesterday putting up posters for this event next week. So there's a lot of small. The more people you have to do these jobs, the better. And it's not difficult. You will be seen as being a member of the community. I was listening to a politician on the radio the other day, and he was talking about that you can stand on the sideline forever, but it's you should enter the field and get involved.
Okay, so before I let you go, just remind the listeners again about the event and times and where it's exactly taking. And I know you're going to give out an air code in case anybody goes to the wrong hall in Littleton next Saturday morning.
Yeah, it's next Saturday morning, the 16th of May. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's in the McCarthy Burrows Community Centre. As Jim says, it's up on the Glencool Road, past the school there. It's not the hurling field, it's the community centre, or it's not the Minnesota Hall. It's again, I'd say it's the community centre, and that's next Saturday, 16th of May. And the air code is A41A0V5. And it's not just for people from our own parish or locality. We put up posters yesterday in the surrounding parishes, your own parish, Holy Cross, Jim, and we put them up in Thurles, Killinall, Gortnahoe, Cashel and Borlahan, and people are welcome from any part of the locality to come on that day and have their property marked.
Pat, thanks very much for joining me this morning. Listeners, if you want to safeguard your property, that's one way you can do it. Turn out to Littleton on next Saturday morning, the 16th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And as we've already given out, it's the McCarthy Burrows Community Centre, Littleton, County Tipperary, A41A0V5.
Thanks, Jim.
Listeners, Teagasc opened the renovated new build here in Clonmel and on Wednesday, and with me I now have the director of Teagasc, Frank O'Mara. I also have Liam Hurley, who is the chairperson of the authority, and needless to mention the local man, Donald Milan. So Donald, I'll start with you because you were the person who had to start this all off. It needed to be renovated. The number of times that I would be down here, I didn't realise that there were two entrances here, or there was an entrance further up the road. But ever since I started broadcasting, I've been coming in the gate just there. So, what was the spur to renovate here?
The pace of change, really, that you mentioned there. I suppose the office originally below was on the quay. Worked very well until it got flooded and so forth. We moved up here. We bought, it was a wholesale unit we bought off of Glanbia at the time, and we remodelled it a bit. It's very difficult to remodel a building like that. Mm-hmm. So we were kind of thinking for some time if we did get the opportunity. So I suppose I have been pestering the two gentlemen here at with the purse strings for a few years. We put a plan together and we were happy with the plan. And all we were hopeful was really that we wouldn't get caught with spiralling costs and stuff like that, and we worked out well. Look, it's a great job. Staff are thrilled with it. Farmers are just getting the taste of it. They like it. They're thrilled, and they deserve it. It's a great farming area. South Tipperary is a great farming area. Clonmel is the hub of it. It's always a very busy office, and I suppose at the end of the day, you have the office, but it's the people that make the difference. So both our customers and our staff were thrilled at it. And look, we had the monthly meeting of the Teagasc Authority here today, and that coincided with the chairman maybe cutting the ribbon on the refurbished office.
Okay, let me come to you, Frank, as the other Tipperary man here in the room. He's a Limerick man. We have half a Munster here.
Yes.
So this happens under your watch as well.
That's right. Sure. Look, we've about 50 offices around the country, and obviously we need to keep investing in those. They're really important. That's where we meet our clients. Okay, we go out to their farms as well, but very often clients come into the offices now because there's an awful lot of paperwork involved in the advisory programme. So look, we need good facilities to be able to do that. We need to move with the times, and I think Clonmel now is a fantastic office. It looks really well, and I suppose very importantly, we did the job. We set out a budget for it. Donald would have probably liked a little bit more money, but anyway, we had to work within a budget, and he worked within that budget, and we delivered the project on time and on budget. And I think we got good value for money, and this office now is fit for purpose for the next 20-30 years. So I think it has been a good investment from our point of view.
You mentioned farmers coming in. I'm old enough to know, and I've been farming long enough to know, that the advisory service always came out to me.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever was interviewed in the Teagasc office in Thurles. The advisor always came to the farm.
That's right. Look, that still obviously goes on because, when you're given advice on technical matters or on kind of farm development, you have to go out and walk the farm, see the farm or whatever. But farming now involves an awful lot of paperwork. There's a lot of schemes with farmers very engaged in things like the BIS or whatever these few weeks. We do our BIS over the last 6 weeks or so. That involves a visit by every client into the office to do that BIS. So there is a lot of office-based activity as well that goes on in the advisory programme now. And obviously here as well we have facilities to hold meetings of groups of farmers. We've a fine room for group sessions and that. So look, the office is an important part of the delivery of the service, but it's only part of it, as you say, the getting out and about, and we're very conscious to try to get out more to farmers, and we're doing a restructuring of the advisory service at the moment to ensure that we are protecting that ability to get out to our clients.
Right. It's interesting that you should mention the BIS. We should remind farmers that there are only 6 days left after this programme goes out that we'll have hit the 15th of May.
That's right, look, and that's a very important calendar date in our calendar of activities because we have a lot of clients to do that on their behalf. And there's the days are you count them on your two hands now what's left. So, but look, we've a lot of the work done at this stage, and okay, there's still a little bit of wrapping up to be done, but we're confident we'll get all that done for our clients by the deadline.
Okay, let me come to Liam, the chairperson of the authority. You have a big responsibility, Liam, as chairperson of the authority, because you're the person the money comes to, and then you have to divvy it out. So how is all that working for you?
I think at the outset I would say that I'm no stranger to Clonmel either. I just live across the mountain, the smallest Moneros town, so I'm quite close here. Look, in relation to money, it's all a team effort. And you can rest assured that any money that's used by Teagasc is used well and used wisely. And I would have to say compliments to Donald in making sure that this office was done within budget and within time. And speaking of that, it's not about money oftentimes. It's about, recognising that we have outstanding advisors. It's only appropriate that they would have offices, that are comfortable, that they have a structure and an office structure that they can feel that, this is a nice environment to work in. And equally where farmers can come in and, discuss things in privacy with their advisor. But one thing, that is hugely important is that last year and in recent years, we've had some huge, important events here in Clonmel. Last November, we had the National Dairy Conference, which was held for the southern part of the country here, and compliments to the Clonmel team here that played such a pivotal role in organising that. It's not about, winning all Ireland, but it's important to note that
the Aidan Kennedy and his family won the National Milk Quality Award last year. And the Clonmel office, played a pivotal role in having a very successful open day there. We had the Walsh family just out the road in Ballylouby, thanks. Yeah. And again, the Clonmel office had a critical role there in having a most successful afternoon, which dealt with the whole area of grassland management, biodiversity. And again, coming back to Tipperary again, what's the name of the family from Moyne? The Ryan family in Moyne in Tipperary. Mm-hmm. We will be having an open day there during the summer months. So again, the Clonmel office team and the Teagasc team will have a very important role in showcasing the success of those farmers. But I think what is hugely important is that those farmers have really made the point, the role of the Teagasc advisors and the collaborative approach is not one or the other. It's a joint effort between the farmers, the advisory team, the dairy processor, whether it be Tier Lawn or Dairygold, all working within this area. And it is the collaborative approach of all working for the benefit of a better farming and a better outcome for everybody involved in the area.
If I was to ask you one last question, Liam, what's your vision of the future of farming in Ireland?
The future of the farming in Ireland, as I would see it, we have about 120 or 130,000 farmers. Fortunately, we have full employment, and I believe for the future, and this is something that has to be seen as positive, we will have far more part-time farmers, let's be very clear about it, where we can have many people holding down really good jobs, and that is a compliment to our state and to the quality of the employment that is available. But equally, they can have part-time, can continue on as part-time farmers that can be very, very profitable. But equally, we have about 14,000 dairy farmers and some large tillage farms as well. They will be full-time roles. And what is important in those roles is that they will be significant employers within the farm. Dairy farmers will certainly be larger in scale, but will be productive, efficient, and will be significant employers. But I see the future for farming really positive, but it will be a blend of both full-time and part-time. And I think overall, I see a very positive future for agriculture, dealing with it from a sustainability point of view, but sustainability from very much in the broadest context possible.
And Frank, last question to you. Where do you see the science? How will that drive farming into the future?
Look, I think there's always a huge role for science in terms of improving what we do. You take, we'll say an animal enterprise, a livestock enterprise, whether it's dairy or beef, animal genetics, hugely important. The whole area of nutrition and feeding and grassland management, and the science is always moving on and continuing to improve there. Animal health, we see new challenges coming nearly every year in relation to animal health. Blue tongue is on the horizon now. We have the pigs and poultry sector, challenged with various diseases as well, and science and technology, and has a big role to play in that. And likewise on the tillage sector, they're really high-tech farmers, really, applying the best technologies, whether it's in the machinery end and all the kind of guidance systems there, using manures to more precisely and getting better value out of organic or animal manures, and obviously the disease control. We've relied very, very heavily on chemicals for the last 20, 30 years. We'll continue to rely on those, but we'll be trying to integrate into that kind of biological or integrated pest management. So, look, science has a big job to do to keep our farming moving forward and advancing in terms of its efficiency and productivity and its sustainability. So, no doubt, I think science is core to how our farming will evolve and delivering on that vision that Liam talked about.
Thanks very much, Frank. Final word from you, Donald. Big day. A great day
Great day, Jim. Great
for
day.
you and your staff in particular.
Yeah. Well, and for, as we kind of said already, I suppose for the farmers in South Tipperary and for Teagasc, it's all about positivity, isn't it?
It sure is. Thank you very much, Donald. Yeah. Thank you, Liam, and thanks, Frank. Listeners, my final guest this morning is Adam Woods, the editor of the Irish Farmers Journal, and Adam is going to tell me some of the things that are in this week's journal. Okay, I suppose fuel prices are one anyway.
Yeah, exactly, Jim. Thanks for having me on. I suppose the announcement of the fuel support scheme, big interest in that this week. It's one of our big stories. Farmers wondering how they apply. It's a relatively simple process, modelled much on the tillage scheme that we've just had in the last 12 months. So farmers can apply for that. It's a relatively short window, so if you're thinking of applying, you need to apply in the next 3 weeks. And that's obviously that 20 cent of a we'll say grant towards the purchase of diesel based on what diesel you bought in 2025. So details are on farmersjournal.ie. Anybody wants to get more details, but it's a relatively simple process, and I'd urge farmers to apply for that in the next couple of weeks.
Any idea when that will be paid to farmers?
I think it could be the end of June. There was a hope maybe that it might have been paid a little bit earlier, but I think by the time those applications go in, I think around the 25th of May, and the turnaround, I think it's the end of June is the earliest that they're hoping for.
Okay, what else would you pick out from this week's journal?
I guess we've had a big backlash on the VAT, I suppose the VAT deductions in March. Yeah. So a lot of managers onto us, a lot of farmers onto us, complaining about that increased deduction. This is around that flat rate deduction, and around, I guess, in terms of the increase, we'll say, or the decrease going from 5.1 to 4.5. The VAT rate is 4.8. So it means €2.80 per €1,000 of animals sold. That's what farmers are paying. I guess farmers are complaining they thought March were lifting that as part of commission, but it's not. It's actually revenue. We understand that there is negotiations ongoing between ICOS, IFA and Department of Finance around evening that up to 4.8 so that there will be no deduction on the marts in terms of sales, because mart managers are saying maybe farmers talking about selling at home, but really, personally for me, the mart is a great place, security of payment, transparency on price as well, as regards you're getting the right price for your animal, I guess, when you're selling in the mart. So very important that we protect those sales in the marts, and we keep that we keep them there, and we keep the numbers going to marts.
And one of the dangers is that people will stop going to marts and have farm-to-farm sales.
Absolutely, and I guess you don't want to say it, but the security of a payment at home isn't as good as a mart. No matter what mart you sell in this country, you're going to get paid the following week. Whereas if you sell at home, there's always that risk that you won't get paid. So the guarantee of payment is a huge, and given the money we're talking about now in terms of weanings making 2,000, 2,500, there's huge money involved in relatively small numbers of stock. So very important that we protect those marts, and we try and get this one solved. I think there is, we'll say, a hope on both sides that'll be solved in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, and I see there's an easing in the price for beef.
Yeah, a little bit of an easing in the last couple of weeks. We would have hoped for a bit of a rise coming into May and June, because it's normally a time when supplies get tight. We're told the UK is where the pressure is. Increased exports or imports from New Zealand and Australia coming into the UK. Irish exports into the UK down 16% for Q1 in 2026. So that's a frustrating factor for finishers. And yeah, we've seen prices back probably 10 cent a kilo in the last couple of weeks, in the last 10 days actually, and further price pressure possibly for next week. So that's not good for winter finishers who are coming out at a very expensive time in terms of finishing cattle. So you would hope in terms of the next couple of weeks, as supplies get tighter, that price will steady.
Right, and we had Tirlan with their AGM this week, and I suppose we'd be all worried about the way in which milk has dropped in the last 6 months.
We're back 12 cent a litre on the same sort of period in 2025, so that's definitely a worry for farmers. The latest GTT auction, actually, it was a little bit more positive, so that would maybe hopefully point to more, we'll say, positive sentiment for the rest of the year. We've just finished up our results meetings with co-ops around the country, and I guess they're a little bit cautious in terms of the rest of the year. Some of them pointing to hopefully some recovery towards the end of the year. Global production is still very high. Cheap grain in America means a lot of dairy cows are being fed a lot of grain, so production is still high, and that's probably impacting European prices a little as well. So hopefully we'll see some improvement in that in the next couple of months, and maybe towards the end of the year some correction on that again.
Right, okay. Let's talk positive at the moment. Talking to you and meeting you here at the Young Student Farmer of the Year, what did you think of the calibre of student that was course, we spoke about here today.
Unbelievable. This is my first time to attend this event, the FBD Teagasc Student of the Year competition. And, you know, we can talk about all the negativity around the industry and the concern that's there and the worries there around global markets, but really it would give you confidence in the future of Irish agriculture when you see the calibre of students up on stage there today, really at the top of their game, able to talk very, very confidently to the judges and to the people on the stage, and really they should be very proud of themselves. Their families should be very proud of themselves, and I would have I'd be very confident about the future having seen what was on display here today as regards the level of students and the calibre of them.
Yeah, and I spoke to you while at the event. We were talking about the future of farming. What do you see is the future of farming? Now we're trying to look 10 years ahead, but if this time last year or 2 years ago, if you told me that America would be flying and we'd all be flying, and now we're all up in a heap because of a fellow in America more than anybody else, not to talk about a few other lunatics around the world. What do you see happening?
I suppose the one thing to remember is, I guess, we don't have that long from that person in America. Maybe he left. He won't be there forever, and that's important to remember as regard, because at the moment he's thrown out the rule book as regards global trade and tariffs, and you just don't know when he gets up tomorrow morning what might happen. It's very hard to plan for that. It's very hard to say to young people, you know, planning a career in any career. I think for me, the biggest challenge probably of the next 12 months is probably CAP and the CAP budget. At the moment, the MFF is looking at a 22% cut to that CAP budget. That is absolutely huge in terms of the implications it might have for Irish farmers. With the analysis in the paper this week, it's a 7,000 drop in tillage incomes, it's a 3,500 drop on dairy farms, it's a 2,000-3,000 drop on suckler farms. So in terms of the implications of that and the importance of CAP going forward, because that has huge changes then on land use. It possibly will move more land into dairying if suckling and beef farming becomes more unviable. It moves marginal land probably into forestry. So huge implications there. But I think as regards our standing on the global stage, as regards food production, we're still up there, and people will maybe frustrate about Bord Bia and the standards that we have to, we'll say, comply to, but I think at the end of the day that will really stead us to good fast in terms of getting onto global markets and having the credentials. We need proof now, and I guess that whole part of that Bord Bia and indeed our genetics and Teagasc and all the help we have behind us, we're in a really good place.
One other thing, you had a very successful GRAS 2026. I see a smile on your face.
No,
okay.
It was a new audience for us, Jim, a new event for us. We took a big risk with it, and the sun shone, thank God. But we've had great feedback since. You know, thousands of people in through the gate, looking at machinery all day, seeing it actually work. And I guess it's such a huge investment now for contractors in terms of what they pay for machinery. To see it working in the field, maybe before they make that decision, that was a really, really good day for them. And yeah, we're really, really happy to be able to do that. And yeah, I think we'll definitely run it again at some point in the future.
It was a big risk to take, though, wasn't it?
It was, and actually, would you believe it rained the following day for the full 24 hours, so we just about got away with it. But yeah, look, I think it's been a good couple of weeks, and farmers and contractors were there to see those machines in operation, and wow, just the size and the scale and the technology on those machines is really something else now. The best conversation I had for the day was with an 81-year-old. He used to cut silage with an MF65 and a 42-inch Charrock. That was the best. What has changed since that?
Okay, well, look at Adam. Thanks very much for having a chat with us. That, listeners, was Adam Woods, the editor of the Irish Farmers Journal. That, listeners, is Agri Report for this week. I hope you enjoyed the show and that you will join me at the same time next week. Coming up next is the news at 10 o'clock, and after that, Eamon Dwyer presents Down Your Way.